What's up, Rockstars? Today I have a huge news video for you. In fact, it was so big, I actually trimmed it down a little bit so we can spend a little bit more time looking at some awesome games. But other than that, there's a ton to go over. We have brand new stuff I haven't covered yet. Some returns from dead companies. We have CMON's latest. We have a ton of stuff, so stay tuned. The amount of marketing spin that has, I'm surprised it hasn't spun its way into orbit and launched into space so aliens can laugh at it too. Hilarious. Alright, we're just going to jump straight into things. Mindbug Beyond. I covered the original Mindbug. I thought it looked like a very cool game. I might be able to get a prototype of this. However, with 15 days to go and with shipping, I don't know about a review. I might be able to do a first impressions. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. I can let them know that that's kind of what I'd be able to do with it if they are able to send it. But I've been really into card games lately, and this is Magic the Gathering-esque that I'm kind of interested in. I like card games because I can get them to the table quickly. DC deck building game is shipping and should be here within a few weeks as far as I know, so that'll be fun to kind of go over. I like these quick games that I can play easily, that don't take up a ton of storage, that feel nice. You know, they got like the magnetic cases and the neoprene mats and all this premium stuff you can upgrade it on. It looks super cool. I like the art too, so definitely interested. It's family friendly, so that's always fun as well. I'll be taking a look at this. I might end up just backing it. I'm not sure, but this is cool. It looks like Beyond Evolution and Beyond Eternity. I think there's two different ones going on there. Actually, it's co-designed by Richard Garfield himself, so I guess that makes total sense. But feel free to check it out. How much is it? How much is it? Man, $39 gets you all of it. That's the whole Explorer pledge to get the standard box set of both. 104 new cards. I'm assuming that's on top of that maybe, and then Life Tracker, Kickstarter promo pack, and character aid cards. So $50 gets you Discovery, get even more stuff. That's not too shabby. So definitely interested in that. All right, moving on. We also have Project L Reprint plus new expansion. This surprised me, and in fact I wish they'd reached out to me. This is by Boardcubator. If you recall, they actually told us that they were closing shop, that they were no more, their entire company was shutting down. They did the Kingdom Come Deliverance game that failed on Gamefound, if you recall. I actually did a review of that and had a lot of fun exploring that world. However, it was between the price and a whole bunch of other things, it didn't end up working out for them. But they had done this Project L, which is this very kind of Tetris-like looking kind of game that looks very easy to play. Again, one of those very quick and simple kind of puzzle-like games that you can play that a lot of people really enjoy. Not a game for me, but it's not exciting enough. It doesn't have any like blood or skulls or violence or mayhem to do, but it does have colored cubes, so there's that. For people who like the colored cubes, it looks like a great game. It really does. I'm teasing. But it's really cool that they were able to actually stick with this, actually come back as a company and do something like this. And they've made over 200,000. Now, they needed like a whole bunch for the Kingdom Come Deliverance because it was an app and all these mini stuff like that. This is super cheaper on them. And so I have a feeling this is definitely a success for them and super happy to see that. All of these are linked down in the description below, of course. So just really cool to see a company come back and then do well. I think that's great. And it goes to show that you kind of need your bread and butter, like these reprints and stuff like this on obvious successes to warrant being able to pay for the fun stuff. I've said a long time that SFG is kind of like that, where they have their like IP stuff or whatever, but then they have their kind of fun ones that they just do on top of that. They don't make as much money, but they're able to put their creative juices into that and pay for that through a little bit of backing, but also just through profits from running a successful company, printing what people, like the masses, want. And so when I see stuff like new Zombicides or I see reprints for all these games, I think it's great. If nothing else, reprints allow more people to get it, which is super great because a lot of these are not retail as well. So that's super cool. Dungeon Saga Origins, a game of classic fantasy adventure. This is kind of interesting. It's almost 300,000. It's by Mantic Games. Some people love them. Some people hate them. I have never played a Mantic Games game, so I couldn't tell you. Hellboy looked interesting from a miniature perspective, but not so much from a board game perspective to me. But I'm also not attached to the IP. I think the IP matters a lot. Speaking of IP, well, this is not an IP. It is very much a classic fantasy. So, I'm going to be talking about Zombicide White Death here in a moment. We're going to be covering some of the stuff there. But what a lot of people don't like is that they got rid of the classic fantasy that the other two were. The Black Plague and the Green Horde are very much the typical Euro fantasy theme. And this White Death is very much not that. And so it feels very different because of that. This is your classic normal fantasy that you would think of when you're like, oh, fantasy, okay, yeah, and you think Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff, right? Very much that. You got your dwarves and you got your barbarian like guys and all sorts of stuff like that. You do your typical stuff, which can be really great. Some people like a little bit more variety. Some people just like having more of this, especially if it's done very well. That's what I always felt about Oathsworn. I felt Oathsworn doesn't take a lot of liberty when it comes to like the world that it made in that sense. It's very much a normal fantasy world with its few twists and stuff like that. But what it does really good. So yeah, your first boss is a big rat, and we've all fought big rats in fantasy games before. But that big rat is something else, right? That's a 10 out of 10 big rat. So I really appreciate it if you can do something well. So hopefully that ends up being well. Okay, let's talk about Zombicide White Death. Now, this is interesting. About 9,000 backers, 877,000 raised. This officially puts it below Green Horde and how much it made day one. It definitely made less by several hundred thousand. Green Horde, I believe, made, if I recall what I checked before in the last video, it was 1.2 million on the first day. So, and that's now well past the 24-hour mark. To be in the 800,000s means that they are hundreds and hundreds of thousands less on this one. Now, that can be attributed to a lot of things, but I think a lot of it was just subverting expectations in a negative way. What I mean by that is sometimes you can subvert expectations by just being better than what you think, and sometimes it can be like, oh, we wanted a sequel, and instead you gave us the straight-to-TV version of the movie, right? Like, you got that straight-to-DVD Disney for your... In other words, this was not Lion King 2. This was Lion King 3 or Lion King 1.5 or whatever, right? So you get those, like, normal theatrical big things that everybody expects, and then you get, oh, another sequel. Oh, it's actually, that has none of the same voice actors, and the animation studio's like the new guys in the team, and it's also not in theaters, and the writer wrote it in one draft. You get that sort of thing. It kind of feels like that because it doesn't match the other theme. The other two are very much that normal fantasy, the stuff like Dungeon Saga Origins, whereas this one is not. It's very much anything that could possibly be called Oriental. They just kind of thrown it all in Japanese, Mongolian, anything that side of the earth, right? You got Chinese, you got it all, just kind of thrown in a hodgepodge there. And then, of course, you have stuff like humanoid, furry people, and all this other kind of stuff. So there's a lot I could go into here, but I think that's what caused that here. That being said, if you are wanting this, it helps if you don't have the Black Pledge or Green Horde, or you don't care about it fitting into that as much. If you're wanting something new, this is definitely something new. And it has a pretty good price for now. It's at $110. It'll probably be about $350 to $400 all in. That's typically what they do. They're doing a lot of stretch goals, though. They are doing daily ones as well. I don't know if I showed that or not. But here is that one. This is actually actively one I would hate painting. I don't like painting so many details when they have like layer on layer. So it's like, well, he's got the fur, and on top of the fur, he's got these other little tufts, and on top of that, he's got this little swirly thing. On top of that, he's got this earring. And so there's like, you're painting, that little thing red, and then you're painting that little thing black. And it becomes a chore for me personally, but I know a lot of people like those really busy minis. Normally, their Zombicide minis are actually really good to paint. Like, this guy would be fun to paint, right? A lot of these would be really fun to paint. And the brighter color scheme where people have bright green hair and stuff like that, like this person here, definitely helps for a painter if that's something you're into for sure. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to dislike. It very much depends on which camp you're in. For me, it's not something I'm going for. I have my Zombicides that I enjoy that I've been playing, and this isn't really doing it for me. It's a little bit too anime, too many bright colors and screaming monkeys apparently. So it just depends on your taste, I suppose. They could have done a better job showing it to new people. The Lacuna Coil minis, that's super cool. I wish they actually showed the minis because I would love to see that. But yeah, otherwise, that's that. It's unfortunate, but they put less effort into it. It's not nearly as much of a campaign as Green Horde was, and it's not making as much. It's almost like the effort you put in, you reap. But, whatever. Redgrass, R9 desk lamp for creative people. This is... Okay, so I have mixed feelings about this. I really like Redgrass as a company. I like their wet palettes. I like their attitudes towards creative people. In other words, people that are busy using their products and sharing that with others. I really like their brushes. Their sable brushes are some of my favorite. I like them over Winsor & Newton. Like, they are robust. They keep their tip well. I've had a very pleasant experience with my Redgrass brushes as well. So I really like the company in that regard. I think they make really good quality products. And I'm sure this is a really great quality product as well. There are two things I don't like about this. Oh, and it's like, I guess I should explain it. It has two lights that you can adjust, so you can, make it really bright or make it really wide and do all sorts of stuff and adjust it, and it clamps to your desk and saves space and all that stuff. Well, the first one being, let's see, where is it? Essentially, the how bright it is. Now, one of the daylight it is. So it's a 5,000 Kelvin, right here. It is right here, and I actually prefer around 56. 5,600 K is typically what I like. Right around here is my preference. To me, I think that looks the cleanest. It's just starting to perhaps get blue. However, and this is kind of my point here, like right now, I have these lights at that. And the reason I do is because it's countering my more yellow, more warm lights, right? The ones that are over here in my room. So if you're painting in a room that has other lighting, you have to kind of counteract that, or like turn them all off or something like that to get that. Otherwise, you're still getting that yellow and then that slightly blue. And I feel that, to me, typically matches my painting area. If you've already changed your lighting, I plan on doing that eventually, but you can adjust that as well, of course. Or if you go next to a window or something like that, it just depends. But this is not adjustable. It is always 5,000. And for me, personally, I tend to like mine a little bit cooler, a little bit more on that. If nothing else, if you see here, in between this middle part is actually like 55. 55 is what you hear a lot for miniature painting. So it's actually kind of surprising to see 5. I would never have guessed that. That seems pretty low. 54, 55, I think a lot of people are at. Again, I'm a little bit higher because I believe in counteracting the lights that I have here that are like right here, like the threes, but that's the first thing that I kind of don't care for. The other thing I don't care for is the price. It's right now about $220. So it's just out of my budget. You rich people can buy it and you guys can love it. But that's a no bueno for me. That's an entire game for light, and you can definitely find lighting cheaper. That doesn't mean it's as adjustable or as nice, and it's not by Redgrass and all this other stuff. I'm sure it's very nice, and I'm sure it's well engineered. But just a little too rich for my blood. I'll keep my wet palette from them. I'll keep buying their brushes, but I'm not going to be buying the lamp, sadly. So anyway, that's my take on that. But if you love it, you love it, and that's great. Paintpal Studio. I covered the first one. This actually did a wet palette that also stored stuff like this. This is for 3D printing. Though again, there are shops that'll just print any STL you give them. So you can always buy the STL and then have them print it for you, or a buddy or anything like that. But now they've done it. It's so cheap, $17, and you can print as much of these as you want, as many as you want. You could do your whole desk in that, all that. Right? For 17 plus the cost of plastic, which is super cheap. Like, that is it. It's really, really nice to do. I like the fact that it has the storage underneath. I think that's super cool. I like that you don't have to do that. And in fact, it even shows, I think at the very beginning, or on one of these, that you can keep them low too. So you don't have to do that. You can keep it low and then raise them to make them go higher. There's all sorts of stuff you can do to just store a whole bunch of stuff in any kind of nook or cranny you have on your desk. That's awesome. I recently wall mounted a lot of my paint. We're going to keep doing that to kind of help save some space there. But especially if even if you just want to like have your stuff right there on your desk, for your current paints, I think that's super cool. And $17, guys, $17. Super cool. All right, this is actually kind of a bummer. So this is Sentinels of the Multiverse Disparation expansion. I was going to cover this and didn't quite get to a news video in time and didn't discover it in time because it's on BackerKit. However, that's kind of the point. This is now over, though I'm sure you can follow it and then late pledge it here very soon. But it made almost $500,000. Like, BackerKit is actually doing well when it needs to. And note that the RPG for Gloomhaven plus all the miniatures is coming, and that is definitely going to be a multi-million-dollar project, I feel, and it's going to put BackerKit on the map for a lot of people. So it's interesting to see them doing better than I expected, actually, from when I first got here, because I don't really like a lot of the UI. I think it looks very plain and kind of ugly. It is still in beta, and there's still some wonkiness, but it's great to see companies doing actually quite good on that. Over 5,000, almost 5,500 backers on this, which is just awesome to see. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I'll start looking at BackerKit more often, seeing if I'll cover more of them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Aeon Trespass Odyssey, the second printing is coming. This is with the 12 Sins of Heracles expansion. I will be doing a details video for that very soon for you guys on something that sounds cool. The name of this game mechanic sounds like a death metal album. It is the coolest named game mechanic I have ever heard in my life. And I'm going to share it with you guys real soon, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to show you a lot of fun stuff and some cool minis too. So stay tuned for that. Definitely pumped for that. I had this open before and it was at 700. I see now it's at 2054. And again, all of these are linked down below for your convenience, of course. Now, I want to end on this. This is Gamefound's update, and it's very interesting that they did this. First of all, I think the timing of this is smart. I'll comment on why in a moment here. So first of all, no longer free. Gamefound is not free on any way, shape, or form. Now, even the Pledge Manager, they will charge you the 3% payment processing fee. That's fairly normal. That's pretty bog standard. But they'll be doing a 5% fee on top of that goes directly to Gamefound, that they will just enjoy the money of. It's kind of like, hey, we provided this, you're paying us for this now. So it is no longer the free option. We'll be talking about that here in just a moment, but I'm going to keep scrolling down here. We're going to talk about a few other things. They're going to be offering where they'll show your game on different things like this right here, right? And they're going to be doing that based off AI to determine which content is shown to whom. And so they can't guarantee how often that'll be shown. The more games on Gamefound, the more popular it is, the less often your game is going to be shared, obviously. We're in an age right now where AI is either written poorly off bad data sets, is fed bad data, doesn't cross-reference its data, or it becomes messed up and you don't know how to do it. It becomes kind of a black box because it's just based off its heuristics and what it's doing. You can kind of just, like, for instance, YouTube and its algorithm, they could not tell you what its algorithm actually likes and doesn't like. What they can only do is rate what comes out of it. So if it's doing this and you want to say, no more of that, right? Like, no more guns and thumbnails. You can tell it that and tell it to learn from that, but it is very black box, and it's that way on purpose so that even if you broke into it, you wouldn't know how this thing works. It's literally just this code that just has now learned itself enough to where it's this hodgepodge weird thing. So we're already kind of getting cagey on AI and the heuristics around it, so I do worry about it just, for whatever reason, liking that game a lot and pumping that to everybody. And then that person gets a huge thing there because it's not trying to do anything evenly unless you really try to code it in a very even way. And maybe you don't want to. I don't know. It raises a whole lot of questions when it comes to that and really not a lot of answers, if any at all. So kind of interesting to note that. Just note that obviously the more people on Gamefound is good, but the more people on Gamefound, probably the more Gamefound campaigns, which means that many more people that AI is looking for to try and see what it should show you. And I imagine it'll do a lot of late pledges too. So it's also everybody that's still accepting money too. All right, they talk about payment methods. Yeah, that's whatever. Of course, they're adding that. The marketing support's kind of interesting. It says our graphic designers create ads using assets provided by creators free of charge. So what they're really saying here is worded in a very weird way is Gamefound is going to advertise itself. And Gamefound is going to advertise itself using your product. And now that's good and bad because it means you get stuff, right? But it also means they're definitely not, necessarily paying you anything for this either. Instead, they want that 5%. They want your pledge manager to do good because they're getting more money, right? The better you do, the better they do. So they will do advertising even during your pledge manager because they want to keep driving people there. So if your game is driving people there, they're going to advertise your game. So very interesting take on that, I feel. I think that's fascinating that you might see an ad that isn't from the company. Now, I trust them, or at least currently, to do good. They talk about how they've done all the Awakened Realms ad campaigns, stuff like that. But there have been, and I've covered in the past, some very cringe ads. Some very cringe ways to do that. For instance, Wormwood talked about how their products is not for poor people. I'm not saying they're going to do that. I'm just saying that you can advertise in ways that you may not like. For instance, maybe it's focusing on the miniatures, and you, as a person, fundamentally don't want to really advertise your game with its miniatures. You're very much like, okay, this is a card game and has minis in it, but I don't like the idea of just showing a miniature and then saying back this, because what you're going to end up doing is getting a backer looking for the miniature, and you're not really spending all the money on it. It's not like it's going to be the best quality ever, or whatever. I'm just giving an example, hypothetical situation that you as a creator might have where they're advertising in a way that you don't necessarily agree with, or you wouldn't have done it that way. You wouldn't have worded it that way. Maybe they make it kind of seem like something you feel it's not, right? Maybe it raises a lot of questions. It's kind of weird. They don't really say anything about working with you per se on that. I don't know if they will. I imagine they would if you voiced a concern, but you're only voicing concern after you see it probably, which means after it's reported to you, happen on it. I don't know. It just seems kind of weird. So that seems odd to me. I mean, I get it, but it's odd. Okay, this is another thing here. They will be taking all of the shipping fees, and they will be handling the VAT, and they'll be handling the shipping. Now, this is kind of interesting. This, as well as shipping fees, is very interesting. It says also, important note, Gamefound will only accept pledge managers if the creator displays net prices during the campaign. So you're now following European law where you are showing the final amount, not a lower amount than plus shipping. So you can no longer hide behind the, oh, we're just going to take freight out. Oh, we're just going to take shipping out. Oh, we're just going to take this out. Now you have to put that in the money you show them. So you can't artificially make your game seem cheaper than it is. I actually really support that. I think that's great. And I think that's a win for consumers. That's awesome. It makes sense in Europe with their VATs and all that stuff. It's obviously a larger percentage and doesn't change quite as much as, like a sales tax sale price where we can vote in something in a local city to support like sidewalk creation or something like that. So like it changes very wildly here in America, and it can change year to year depending on the product and all sorts of other stuff. Plus which state you're in, or which city you're in, or which county you're in. I mean, it gets crazy. But I think overall, definitely a positive thing. I think that's super cool. This part anyway, and we'll talk about the rest. And then of course, yeah, you can get all this information and whatnot here. This I thought was hilarious. Hilarious! This is probably one of the funniest things I've read that any company's written. Literally meme-worthy to me. So the no fee for starting and managing pledges, a 5% fee plus 3% payment processing applies only in additional payments. It amazes me that their introduction of charging 5% of all of your money that you're getting in the Pledge Manager is under the title Free Setup and Pledge Management. Only a company, only a tone-deaf executive in some suit somewhere could think that you can put under free setup and pledge management. Oh, by the way, here's our extra brand new, just for you, 5% you're getting charged. It just cracks me up. The amount of marketing spin that has, I'm surprised it hasn't spun its way into orbit and launched into space so aliens can laugh at it too. Hilarious. One of the, I burst out laughing when I read that. The fact that that's the header you chose to comment on how you're now charging 5%, hilarious. Funny stuff. Gamefound, you have a great sense of humor. That is funny. Okay, so we're going to comment, or we're going to go over here to John Wrote ! Or John Rot ! Or however it's pronounced. And he brings up some interesting stuff. He is a creator, obviously. I don't even know what of, but I'm glad he's creating stuff in this space. I think it's great. He mentions now that, first of all, 5% is actually really high. BackerKit has a flat fee depending on how big of a manager you're putting in there, and then 3.5%. Flat fee on top of that. Now, when does that equal what is the flat fee? All that they actually have. If you go to this BackerKit / pricing, you can get the exact amount it'll be. So you can say, oh, I'm putting in this thing and it's this amount. I don't know exactly when the charts go like this. In other words, when the 5% is more or less than that based off that flat fee bring in. But the flat fee bring in, from what I've seen, is not terrible. So I don't know. I don't know where that ends up. It's just interesting that they're doing the 5%, whereas BackerKit, which is known as one of the more expensive ones, is 3.5%. Just kind of interesting to see that. So they've kind of like gone from, hey, we're free to, hey, we're like one of the most expensive, or at least on par with one of the most expensive ones like BackerKit. And then this is kind of interesting as well. I'm going to actually read this whole part here. Collecting VAT and processing it for us can be very helpful, life-saving for some EU VAT registered. But collecting shipping fees and processing it for us is not. We negotiate rates with our shippers, and we're the business responsible for paying them. Sometimes we strike deals that reduce our shipping fees and thus some of our VAT. But you'd have the overage instead of us being able to spend it on our backers. So this points out two things. First of all, of course, the shipping is not exact. It's never going to be exact. It's such a complex thing. And there's so many different iterations of it. And you can't lock every single price in and then charge exactly that. So it's already going to be kind of like funny money in a way. You're just trying to do your best. And if you can save money last minute and you've already charged it, you're going to take that. If you charged shipping and you started charging shipping here, you're not going to lower it after a month, but maybe after a month the price went down. You're going to keep charging the same, and now suddenly you're making a profit. Now, what they say is they put it and spend it on their backers, and I believe most do. I'm not trying to yell at John for doing that. I think that's just part of life, right? Life is kind of messy, and making these board games and delivering it on a global scale is a very messy and involved and complex process. And as such, you're definitely going to end up in some cases where there's an overage. Right now, I know most devs don't mention this. Most devs don't mention any kind of overage in shipping. So I appreciate him even talking that plainly about it. And I think it's great. I think it's great that you can suddenly be like, hey, we got an even better deal. Score. Now we can put this money towards this. Now we can make sure that we can ship out replacements. Now we can really invest in the sequel to this, or do this, or do that, or offer this at a lower price, or whatever it might be. I think it's great. Maybe I can just go and take my wife out on a date now because I can finally spend some money on it. like whatever it is. I don't even care. I think that is a huge point, right? That now that they're taking that, if you end up getting a better deal, Gamefound has your money. They're the ones doing that. And if you say, okay, write a check for $5,000 and they collected 10, they just gained $5,000 that your customers gave them, not you. So again, a lot of kind of odd choices here. They're definitely doing things differently. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. That's a few of mine reading through, and I read through quite a few of these comments. Not all of them, but quite a few. I think I didn't get to these responses here, but it's just, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that. I think that's definitely going to understand. I think this is a great thing. I think this is a scary thing that's probably not too appropriate. I think this is can potentially be weird. There's a lot of oddities here. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. That's all I have right now. I'll be covering some more stuff again. I'll have that details video. I got another news video. I might even have that review, like I said, for like Mindbug and stuff like that coming up. So stay tuned for all that. Guys, have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye, guys.